The following feature presentation is part of the Skywalking Network.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 517 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
I think the thing that drew me both into writing fantasy and into emergency room work was a desire from a very young age to be a wizard.
Kathleen Kennedy called up the hospital you were working and asked, how would one go about resuscitating an alien?
People ask me how I became a Hollywood writer. I say by going to medical school. Give me something to work with, yeah.
Instead, she got a gold bikini.
Okay, that's good enough. All right. Well, I'm happy with that.
Who are you? You can see in his eyes just, God, yeah, who am I?
Are you ready?
Welcome to Neverland.
Here we go.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land.
When I first made Star Wars, everybody in Hollywood said, well, this is a movie Disney should have made.
You're more than just fans. You're family.
Best day ever!
Secrets loud.
It's about family, and that's what's so powerful about it.
Hey.
When you use a bird to write with, it's called tweeting.
When we visit the world of Disney, we never grow old. It's a Peter Pan, Never Land that keeps us young in heart.
This is Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you are skywalking through Neverland. I have a good feeling about this.
Hey, Skywalkers! In this episode, author James Kahn returns to Skywalking Through Neverland. His new book, My Jedi Memoir, A Double Life, was just released, and he will dive in deep and tell us stories of writing the Return of the Jedi novelization, working as an ER doctor, and a letter he wrote to George Lucas on ideas to make Jedi a better story. But for right now, we want to welcome you back to
Skywalking Through Neverland.
I am Richard Woloski, but now everyone please say hello to my sweetie wife Sarah, who is just a mishmash of pop culture.
Yes, I am. I have like a Hera little bound going on, but an Encanto ears. And you know what? It's warm today, so I wanted something nice and cool and cute. There you go.
As Skywalker's Academy says in the Sky Chat, the wrap of Khan, the wraparound of Khan.
Okay. Oh, I like that. Yeah, because we're recording our wraparounds. Very nice.
Awesome. Now, I got to ask, we started the show off a little bit differently. We started with the coming up in this episode, where normally we'll do a couple of teases. So we want to know from the Skywalkers, what did you like? Do you like knowing what's coming up in the show right at the top of the show? Let us know in the comments.
Skywalkers, we are your enthusiastic podcast destination for the many decades of your Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, and pop culture fandom. So it's time for your weekly Wookiee hug and your little sprinkle of pixie dust for our family of Skywalkers whom we all love very much. And if you're watching with us live on YouTube right now, or even after the fact, we love that because you can actually see us and talk to you. And Richard, how many subscribers did we get in this past week?
Well, in this past week, I forget how many we had last time.
Yeah, me too.
But this time, well, we definitely gone up 30 since last week because of our
Comic-Con Revolution panels.
Two Comic-Con Revolution trivia panels. And with every panel, we would ask people, hey, can you please subscribe? We're trying to get to that 11,000 by San Diego Comic-Con. So we went up by 30. So now we have 10,563. So we just need 437.
Okay.
By July.
Sounds good.
I think we can do it, yeah. So thank you. If anyone from Comic-Con Revolution is listening or watching right now, thank you so much for subscribing and helping us reach that goal.
Skywalker's Academy likes to know what to expect.
Oh, okay. Oh, so Skywalker's Academy is weighing in and says that he likes what's coming up on the episode up top.
Absolutely.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what I like?
What?
The fact that we are being sponsored by Small World Vacations, and they are a diamond-level Disney vacation planner travel agency and can help you book your trip to a Disney park around the world. And best of all, this This service is free of charge, so they can help plan your trip to a Disney park, a Disney cruise, the Universal theme parks. They can do it all for you, and they go above and beyond. And we can say that because we've used their services before. And so we can say very, very honestly that they are an awesome company that does awesome service. How does the Skywalkers know that we're being honest? Listen to our review of Lilo and Stitch next week. You'll know how honest we are with our reviews.
That's right.
So head over there to smallworldvacations.com for a no obligation price quote and tell them Skywalking Through Neverland sent you.
We are recording this episode from Long Beach, California on May 20th, 2025. Richard, what happened today in Star Wars history?
Well, you know what? This is the episode of Shake-Ups.
We're
going to shake up some of the format here.
Okay.
So instead of telling you what happened today in Star Wars history, I'm going to tell you what happened this week in Star Wars history, where we had 6 movies come out in the month of May.
But all within this week.
Yes. So May 19th, we celebrated the 26th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. May 19th as well, the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. Then on May the 21st, we had the 45th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. May 25th, we have the 48th anniversary of Star Wars A New Hope. Let me say that again, the 48th. The 48th anniversary.
And you saw it. You were alive when you saw it.
I was very much alive, unlike yourself.
Wow.
Not even a thought, but we're so glad that you were born.
I know.
But yeah, coming in 2 years, the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. Can't wait to celebrate that. But right now, we'll celebrate the 48th anniversary. And also on May 25th, we're going to celebrate the 42nd anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Yay.
Also on May 25th, 3 movies came out on May 25th. The third one being Solo: A Star Wars Story. So we're going to celebrate the 7th anniversary of Solo.
Oh, that's so cute. Solo 7. Aw.
Yeah, but it feels like only yesterday.
It does.
So this is just like the tip of the iceberg of why this is Star Wars month.
Yeah, now I know Disney celebrates May the 4th as like the ultimate Star Wars fan day, but really this week is the ultimate Star Wars week.
But I do like the fact that we're kicking off Star Wars month on May the 4th.
It is fun.
Yes. So when people say it's the Star Wars day, it's like, you know what, we'll let it slide. We'll let it slide because it kicks off Star Wars month. So that is good. If everyone can collectively dig into this and there's no complaining, you know what? I'm happy with that. I won't complain. I know there's some people who want to say, no, May 25th is Star Wars day. You know, and everyone has their specific day. Maybe if someone saw Star Wars on HBO on February 1st, 1983, that's their Star Wars day. Throwing some other Star Wars trivia date fun facts.
I'm trying to think when I saw it. I don't remember what month.
Okay, but let's go back to talking about the month of May.
Okay.
What else happened in the month of May, Sarah?
Well, Frank Oz had a birthday.
On May the 26th.
Oh.
Frank Oz is going to turn 81 years old.
Okay.
Wow. So then Peter Cushing, he turns 112 on May 26th.
Of course, he doesn't really because he did pass away.
Right, but he's still, you know what? Peter Cushing will have turned 112. You know, he's still with us.
Yes.
You know those fragments of Death Star that blew up? He's somewhere in there. So he's still with us. And then the next day on May 27th, Christopher Lee will have turned 103.
Wow.
So
but also May 27th is one of our Skywalkers' birthdays.
Yes. Julie Gildersleeve. Let's throw her in there for Star Wars month.
That's right.
She was born on May the 27th.
Oh, and Skywalker's Academy is celebrating Happy Star Wars Day. The actual Star Wars Day. Yay.
Well, tomorrow being May the 21st.
Oh.
So Skywalker's Academy, why do you celebrate Star Wars Day tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, we'd love to know.
Is it because The Empire Strikes Back is your favorite film?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it comes back with November 1978. The Star Wars Holiday Special is actually Star Wars Life Day. See, there's so many different ways you can interpret Star Wars Day and celebrate Star Wars Day.
And we do it all. We do it all.
So happy Star Wars month and Star Wars week to all the Skywalkers.
Now, let's continue our celebration of this Star Wars month and talk with James Kahn.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
This could be a real adventure, no more pretend.
The strongest stars have hearts of kyber.
This path has been placed before you. The choice is yours alone.
I won't fail you. I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
We are so excited to have back on the show author James Kahn, the author of the New York Times best-selling Return of the Jedi novelization. Also on his resume, he has resuscitated a dying extraterrestrial and saved many non-extraterrestrials as an emergency room doctor.
James just released My Jedi Memoir, A Double Life, an autobiography that uses the hero's journey in his Return of the Jedi novelization to outline the phases of his own life. Many of you may have even seen him as an attraction on the Universal Studios tram tour.
Hey, James!
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, we are doing great. So good to have you back on the show. It's been 10 years.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me back.
Where has time gone? Well, we have so much to talk to you about, but let's begin by telling everyone that My Jedi Memoir, A Double Life, is now available on Amazon.
And
Nice.
by double life, that refers to the author and emergency room doctor side of you?
Right, exactly. It was I've done both sort of in parallel for many years. I just recently, in the last few years, finally retired from medicine, but I haven't retired from writing yet.
Okay.
Oh, thank goodness. Now, the last time you were on, you told us the story of how Kathleen Kennedy called up the hospital you were working and asked, how would one go about resuscitating an alien? And you go into this in your book, but can you tell us that story again? And then we'll roll into the scene from E.T. where you play a doctor who tries to bring E.T. back to life.
Okay, cool, sure. Yeah, that's basically how I got into the Hollywood business. People ask me how I became a Hollywood writer. I say by going to medical school. I was working at St. John's emergency room in Santa Monica, just outside L.A., and a call came in one day from a woman who no one knew who it was, asking if someone down in the ER could help her figure out how to resuscitate an alien. So we told her, sure, we can probably do that. Come on down and we'll give you a demonstration. And so it was Kathleen Kennedy, and she came down with Melissa Matheson, who had written E.T., and they were filming E.T. at the moment. They came down and we gave them a demonstration of what a resuscitation looks like. I played the victim, and one of the other doctors pounded on my chest, and they liked what they saw. So the next day, maybe 3 or 4 doctors and several nurses from the ER there went down to the set of E.T. It was at Laird Studios, which is adjacent to MGM. And we became part of that scene. They were filming that whole week. They were filming the E.T. resuscitation scene where he dies. They dressed us all up in hazmat suits and told us to just ad lib and say and do whatever we would do in an emergency room if someone was brought in dead, basically. And so we just started, shouting out orders, give me an amp of epi, start chest compressions. It's kind of silly in retrospect to think that any of that stuff that would work on a human would work on an alien, but that's all we know how to do anyway. So he just wanted a sense of realism about it. So, and it gave that sense.
If this call came in any other place other than Los Angeles, they'd be calling the FBI.
No, exactly. Absolutely. In fact, there was a slight disconnect at first when they said they wanted to resuscitate an alien. The ward clerk who took the call thought they were talking about an alien who'd crossed the border and was in medical difficulty.
Wow.
So it was all very exciting, and if you run that clip, you'll see that there's a moment where E.T. is lying on the gurney in this big tent. Yeah,
we'll go ahead and roll the clip, and talk us through it and tell us where we can find you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
So here comes all the doctors rushing in.
Here now we're all running in because the alarm has just gone off. And there I am. Stop. Can you stop it? I'm the last doctor in line there.
Okay.
And we can go back.
Let's see if I can. Yeah.
Right there.
Oh,
right there.
And you're the one holding the clipboard, right?
I'm holding the clipboard in a blue hazmat suit, standing there, ready to take. There's always someone at a resuscitation who takes notes on the resuscitation to see. So afterwards we can go over what was done right and what was done wrong. So I started out taking notes on my clipboard, and then I helped hang an IV line, and I pounded on his chest a few times and shouted out some orders.
Is that also a waiver you're holding for ET to sign that if anything goes wrong,
Right.
you're not liable?
That's right. Yeah, just a liability clause. Yeah.
All right, here, let's show this. We kind of put the scene here. All right, so E.T.'s lying.
Yeah, his head just rolled over.
And there's Elliot.
Yep. Elliot's being pushed out of the way. Wow.
He came to see me. That's on the right. That the guy in the beard is Lamponi, who ran the ER and sort of organized all of us to go down there.
Wow.
And that guy whose face was just on the screen, I can't remember. That's Lamponi, who ran the ER. The guy whose face we saw in the preceding frame, to the right side of the frame, I can't remember his name, but he was there. He was Stephen's cardiologist at Cedars-Sinai. This guy.
This guy right here?
Right there.
On the right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many of those were real doctors and how many were actors?
I don't think any of them were actors. They were all mostly from St. John's ER. And then, there's one actor. There's one actor who was a doctor, but he was also a professional actor. And then the rest were all professional nurses. That guy on the right was a doctor and an actor. This guy here, his name is Bob Murphy. Rest in peace. He passed on about 10 years ago. And he was the guy who was in the ER who took the original call for asking about the alien.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the guy that handed over the phone call to you. It's like, okay, if anyone can handle this, it's going to be James.
And he's the guy who pounded on my chest for Kathleen Kennedy to demonstrate what a resuscitation looked like.
And you're like, oh, too hard.
Yeah, it was. He's kind of a wild man. He's a Vietnam vet. He's a little bit on the edge a lot of the time, but he's a great guy. There's Lamponi again.
Got an IV bag.
Yeah, those are a couple nurses from St. John's.
Nice.
Now, when you walked in and saw this alien, was this the first time you had seen E.T., the actual E.T., or did they show you the puppet beforehand?
No one knew what he looked like. It was kept highly secret. The working title during the filming was A Boy's Life, because they wanted to make it sound like just kind of a not very interesting kids movie, so that there wouldn't be a lot of interest from the press or people nosing around the set. They wanted to keep it highly secret.
Nice.
Well, that title just does just that.
Yeah.
Did Spielberg, did he direct you at all, or did he say, I'm going to stand back and you guys do what you're going to do?
Yeah, no, he didn't do any directing of the resuscitation itself. He just wanted a complete, as realistic a feel as possible. He didn't want, some director, writer, producer introducing his thoughts about how a resuscitation should look. He wanted it to just happen the way it actually happened.
And the camera, was it like a handheld camera at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how many days did it take to do this, or did they do it in like one big lump sum and cut it
the
together?
the whole scene took actually 5 days. It was that entire week, because after every shot like this, then you pause and there's a new setup, and the cameras have to get around to a different angle, and
Right.
Everyone does it again. They want multiple takes. Particularly in a chaotic scene like this, they wanted multiple takes that they could find little bits and pieces to cut together into a dramatic arc of that scene. So it took a while. I was only there the first day, because at the end of the first day, I had already published my first science fiction novel called World Enough and Time. It's published by Del Rey Ballantyne. And I thought, well, this is the only time I'll ever be in the presence of Steven Spielberg. I've got to give him my book and see if he'll be interested in making a movie out of it. It took such chutzpah. I don't know how I ever managed to make myself do it. But finally, I felt like, well, literally, there's never going to be a moment like this where I'm standing next to him and we have some even minimal kind of working relationship, and I have some minimal kind of credibility in his mind because I'm a working doctor and doing this, helping his scene come to life. So at the end of that first day, I brought my book. I had actually brought it in with me at the beginning of the day, thinking sometime during the day there's got to be a moment. And so I went to his office between shots and I said, Mr. Spielberg, I know, people must come up to you and ask this all the time. I'm embarrassed, but I just had this science fiction book published. It's really good. I wonder if you could ever read it and maybe consider making a movie out of it. So he very graciously took it and said, well, obviously I've got a big pile of stuff to read and I'm really busy, but I'm happy to take it and I'll put it on my shelf. And, when it rises to the top, I'll read it. So I thought, that's great. I felt so, I got bragging rights, if nothing else. I could tell all my family. I gave my book to Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, your follow-up book should be called The Hollywood Writer Who's Got Chutzpah.
Yeah.
Because of this and a George Lucas story. We'll get into it in just a bit. That's what it takes. That's what it takes in this business, some chutzpah.
So the next day, I went in the next day as well, and we did a few shots. And then in the middle of the day, one of the PAs ran up to me and said, Mr. Spielberg wants to see you right away. And I thought, uh-oh, did I look in the camera when I wasn't supposed to? What did I do wrong? But I went into his office and he said, he read a little bit of it and he really liked it. And he gave it to Frank Marshall, who's producing the movie. And he really liked it too. And we're behind the 8 ball on the novelization of Poltergeist that just finished filming and is being edited now. And if you can promise me that you can finish that novelization in a month, you got the gig.
Wow.
So I thought my first thought was I can't possibly do that. In the hero's journey, there's the refusal of the call, and so my refusal was internal. And I thought, well, first of all, I'm scheduled to work 12 shifts in the ER this month. I can't possibly get out of those, and I don't even know exactly what a novelization is or how you would write it, or I can't do this. No, but then I thought, well, this is what I wanted to do. This is my chance. This is my shot. I got my shot, like in Hamilton. And so, I thought, okay, well, I'll call in all my favors and get all my doctor friends to pick up my shifts. And that's all I'll do is write this book. And, my science fiction novel that I'd given him took me a year to write. So the idea that I could write this in a month was a heavy lift, but I committed to doing it.
Well, the one lesson we've all learned from Ghostbusters is when Spielberg asks you to write a novelization, you say yes.
That's right. Exactly.
When someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
So I spent the next month, November, basically all of November of, was it 81, I think, in his conference room next to his office at MGM, just writing from morning to night, from 9 in the morning until 9 at night. I wrote on a legal pad and pen because I didn't have any computers or I wasn't very good with a typewriter. And so they also hired a secretary to come in every couple of days with an IBM Selectric typewriter and transcribe everything I had written for the last couple of days.
Wow,
that's really cool.
Yeah. Now, part of your book, my Jedi Memoir, is structured in a very unique way that I've never seen before, where you say that you see your life as a movie. So part of your book is written like a screenplay. So do you find that this is helpful as a writer to visualize?
Yeah, I've always visualized both myself in stories and stories that I'm imagining. I've got a very visual imagination, and even when I'm writing, especially if I'm like in the zone, I don't feel like I'm making this stuff up or creating anything. I feel like I'm watching a movie in my mind and just transcribing what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing.
Oh, cool. That's why, I mean, when I read your novels, it is so visual and you really get into the minds of the characters, which is what a novelization is all about.
Well, plus when you go to like the Disney Imagineering buildings or anything at Lucasfilm or ILM, you always see toys all over everyone's desks, and they'll get a spaceship and go, okay, this is what I'm trying to. This is what I'm seeing in my mind, and how do I write this?
Exactly. And when you say you get into the novelizations, get into people's minds, I actually have a two-phase way of writing these, which is I write really just a skeleton plot line for the first draft. It took me 2 weeks to write the first draft, and it was fairly short. Then I gave them the first drafts to look at and read really quickly to just see if I was on the right track. And they said, yeah, they liked it, go ahead. So then.
And this is for Poltergeist.
This is for Poltergeist, yeah. I go back to the beginning, and now I start to fill in all the details around the skeleton of the plot draft, all the interior monologues, the relationships, the motivations, the psychology.
And that led to Spielberg telling Lucas, hey, you know what? I got this new friend. His name is James Kahn.
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly in that order. It was that just as I had finished that, and Stephen really liked it, the novelization when he read it. I also brought in, I asked him at one point if I could bring in a lot of new material that wasn't in the movie at all, because some of it reminded me of research that I had done in ESP in medical school. So I brought in a lot of that research into the novelization that wasn't part of the movie, but which fleshed out the novelization. So he really liked all of that. And just as that was done, Return of the Jedi was just finishing filming, and George Lucas was just starting to look around for someone to novelize that. So he asked his buddy Stephen if he had any recommendations. So Stephen said, funny you should mention it. So it was good timing for me.
Yeah, no kidding.
And you had wrote the Jedi novelization between July and August 1982, as you go into in your book. Why do they only give you just a month?
You know, I don't know why. It makes no sense to me, but I thought that was like an unusual situation with Poltergeist, but that's kind of what it was every time. It's like the novelization was an afterthought maybe, and somewhere along the line someone said, "Oh my God, we forgot about the novelization. We got to get that written real fast." But they all asked for it to be done in a month.
I once spoke to Don Glut, who wrote the novelization to The Empire Strikes Back, and he said, "Yeah, they gave me 3 weeks."
Yeah. It's crazy.
Now,
crazy.
Being like, 9 months out, did you just know that there's going to be changes made to the film and Lucas is going to change the story and the editing and you got to make changes later on? Did that go through your mind?
Yeah. And that was happening a little bit during the writing. I would write some sequence and then I would get a call saying, actually, for example, the very last scene with Anakin appearing in the bonfires at the end was never in the script at all. It wasn't in any script that I ever saw, but it was a phone call I got saying, we're going to add this. Why don't you better put it in the end of the book as well.
Also, one of the changes that happened, I know you wrote a scene in which Luke, after being shot with the electric lightning of the Emperor, suddenly comes back to life, and he's the one who throws the Emperor down the shaft.
Yeah, in the script, actually, it's Luke, not and. Yeah. In the movie, finally they changed it to Vader, but originally it was Luke. And I asked George about that later. You know, was that a change he made at the very last second, or did he put that in as a spoof with different endings and different scripts, so that if it leaked somewhere, it wouldn't leak the correct version? And he said no. He knew from the very beginning what that storyline was. I don't know why he put it in.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, he does do that. He'll put different things.
Yeah?
I am your father. Obi-Wan is your father. Han Solo is your father. Grogu's your father. Everyone's like, who's Grogu?
Well, speaking of leaks, I mean, Lucasfilm gave you the Return of the Jedi script to read before you started writing. So now, it's been over 40 years now. So, just between us, James, did you tell anyone any other secrets? Just between us.
Not secrets exactly, but there were some sections that I wrote in the novelization that were cut before the novelization was published. For example, I wrote a scene, like a couple-page scene, in which Princess Leia is remembering her torture by Darth Vader in Episode 4. Where he brings in the torture droids with a needle and
the door closes.
Yeah. He's going to probe her mind, and she doesn't give anything away. But she goes in depth about what a violating, horrible experience that was. And it was, I don't know that it was exactly graphic, but I think they probably felt that in retrospect, realizing that he was her father, it was kind of creepy seeing
Mm.
that torture of her by him. So that was cut out.
It must be really hard to do something like this so many months out. Once again, knowing that maybe 20% is going to be changed later on.
Right. And in a way, nothing goes to waste. Even if it doesn't get used in that moment, in that scene, in that work, there's often some little piece of it that you can retrieve and put in something else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always that you never throw away anything because you never know when you're going to need it again. It's only when you throw it away is when you're going to need it.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. Going back to Leia, I mean, in one of your first Return of the Jedi drafts, you had fleshed out Leia's backstory on Alderaan, which was all cut. But I would love to know, can we read that? I would love to know your fan fiction of Leia.
You didn't delete that, did you?
That got deleted, yeah. And unfortunately, I spent, when we moved, particularly going through piles of boxes and archives of 50 years of writing, and that got lost. That got a whole box of stuff from those years got lost in transit somewhere somehow. So I no longer have that chapter that I wrote about Leia, which was really disappointing. I'd love to publish that now. But I felt like she got a little bit of short shrift in terms of character, and I kept trying to give her pieces to do. So that was one reason I put in the torture scene, was to give her some depth and some understanding of her inner psychology, and that's why I put in the backstory on Alderaan. I also gave her tried to give her a bigger role in convincing the Ewoks to join the fights, to join the Rebel Alliance. So it was really her argument that convinced them to come in and help the rebels against the Empire.
Yeah, and she was the one who made the connection with Wicket. And as you mentioned in your book, had Han been that person, it probably wouldn't have gone so well.
He would have gone in there guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ewoks like, you know what, we're going to give you a dress. We like you so much.
Yeah. But I do want to tell all the Skywalkers that you do have a tease of Leia's backstory in your novel. So
yes.
Most of it was lost, but yeah.
Did you confer with Lucas or go to like the Marvel comics for a backstory, or did you make it all up yourself?
No, I just made it all up. And to be fair, it simply did not comport with the backstory that he had in mind for the whole prequels. So he was perfectly right in getting rid of it. I think it's just he hadn't shared with me, and I'm not sure that he knew himself at that point exactly what the backstory was. I think he was in the process of just starting to make it all up.
Can you give us a couple of little nuggets of things that you had come up with for Leia's backstory? Anything with her mother?
No, it was mostly her relationship with Bale, and growing up sort of in the diplomatic world, and learning all the intricacies of diplomacy and negotiations, and what that world was like, the world of high power politics.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know one of the first drafts of Return of the Jedi was all Leia-centric, and she is the one that went down to Endor with the Rebel squad looking for the shield generator. And then they pulled back on that and just had her as part of the group. But yeah, it was supposed to be really her story to begin with.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure back in '83, Carrie Fisher's like, "Come on, guys, what? Give me some story here, would you?
Give me something to work with." Yeah.
Instead, she got a gold bikini.
Okay, that's good enough. All right. Well, I'm happy with that.
Poor Leia.
All right, now, Sarah, you got a favorite quote from the book that you went on and on about?
Yeah. So, as reading your book, James, and this is my favorite quote. Now, everyone had been waiting for 2 years to see how the whole saga turned out in Return of the Jedi, and I was about to help tell it, as if I'd been beamed to Mount Olympus to regale everyone with the original Greek myths. I just loved that. I thought that was great because, those are the myths of our time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they totally are. And I really have always viewed myself first and foremost as a storyteller. I mean, I'm a raconteur at parties, dinner parties. I regale people with tales and stories, and either things I made up or things I've seen or read. And writing is just part of that. I'm a songwriter as well, and my songwriting is part of that too. So So telling tales, both small intimate tales, but also grand mythological kinds of sagas. I just love to tell.
What is your favorite tale to tell?
What's my favorite tale to tell? I'll tell you, I have my earliest memory of an adventure story and a book. I was like 4 years old, and I had a record. It was a '78 record that on one side was Peter and the Wolf being narrated by Basil Rathbone and the London Symphonic Orchestra. On the other side was Treasure Island, and it was like I don't know, a 30-minute, 20 or 30 minutes, in really intense condensation of the book of Treasure Island, with the few little scenes dramatically acted out, and then the rest of it narrated. Might have been by Basil Rathbone as well, but I can remember listening. I remember especially the scene where Jim Hawkins is hiding in the apple barrel, listening to the pirates plot mutiny, and that just so took me. I think that was the foundation for all the stories I love to tell after that.
Wow.
It's great to see all the enthusiasm that comes out of you you were just reciting that.
Yeah. And I took much of that consciously for writing Goonies, because it was also a sort of pirate tale, and also Treasure Island was written in the first person, told by Jim Hawkins, the boy. And so when I wrote Goonies, I did the same thing actively. I had it written in the first person by Mikey, by the young boy in the Goonies, to kind of parallel Treasure Island and also parallel the style of Huckleberry Finn, which was in the first person by Huckleberry Finn.
Right.
Well, as a side note, did you enjoy Skeleton Crew, which took a lot of inspiration from Goonies?
Yeah, I never saw it.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think you in particular would really appreciate the tone of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. So put that on your list.
I'll write it down right now.
You do say in your book that you're a Star Wars nerd, so it has to be done.
Absolutely. I've just been spending the last 2 weeks with my wife binging on Andor.
Nice.
Okay, what did you think? Did you finish?
Fabulous! I loved it. In fact, when we finished Andor, we immediately started watching Rogue One, and then by the time we finished that, we immediately started watching Episode 4.
Nice.
Like
of course.
One long continuous soap opera.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me ask, what character are you most drawn to in Andor? Because there's many of them.
Oh, many. The writing was so beautiful, the acting, the story. It was really an adult drama in a way that most Star Wars stories, though I love, are not. It was really went into the psychology. It was kind of a combination noir, heist film, spy film. Finally, I loved Cassian Andor, I think, the most. But gosh, Luthen Rael was fabulous, and Clea was great, and Bix was great. I don't know, everyone was great.
We did an episode on one of our favorite scenes, which was the dinner party from hell with Dedra and Cyril and Cyril's mom.
Well, that was so great.
It was.
I read that shot, that moment where you cut to the bedroom and he's just lying prostrate on the bed, was an ad lib.
Yep. Yeah, they were shooting her scene with Edie, and so the director was like, "Well, what do you want to do, Cyril?" And he's like, "Well, I know what I would do in this moment."
Face plant.
Yeah.
That couple's arc was just fabulous. I thought where it started, how it progressed, and how it ended.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the moments. I don't know. Can I give away spoilers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Okay,
Spoiler
now you can.
Yeah. The very last moment in that show, where Cyril is about to kill Andor, and Andor looks at him, and Andor knows he's seen him before somewhere, but he can't remember where. And he says, "Who are you?" But Cyril takes it as a question to him about, who am I? In this moment. It was just brilliantly written.
Yeah, it's great to see people's interpretations. There's like over 100 interpretations I have seen, now 101, about that particular moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could mean just about anything. It's you can see the heartbreak in his eye. Like, I've been
Yeah.
chasing you for years. You got
Yeah.
no idea who I am.
Right, exactly.
Poor guy.
And then he just, he's also in the process of realizing he's been betrayed by Dedra, he's been betrayed by the Empire. Everything he's been doing in support of that is for nothing. He feels like a fool and humiliated, and now he's kind of bonding with the rebel faction on Gorman.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know who he is anymore. And so when the question comes out of this guy's mouth, who he's been following obsessively and who he hates, asking them, "Who are you?" You can see in his eyes just, God, yeah, who am I?
Yeah.
If he had survived and he had met up with you, James, what book would you say, yeah, read this book and get your mind off of things? What book would you recommend?
Treasure Island, perhaps?
Or My Jedi Memoir, available now at Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Please.
All right. Well, going back to your book, let's talk more about the James Kahn chutzpah here, because a week before you started writing the Jedi novelization, you sent notes to George Lucas about improving the ending to Return of the Jedi. Tell us about some of those ideas, and was there a part of you that thought this is a make or break idea?
Yeah, well, I was, I loved reading the script, but one of the things that struck me right away about the script was, wait, this is the same ending as we saw in episode 4. It's like there's this Death Star, and it has a weakness at the core, and if we can just drop this little missile right in through the trenches into the core, it'll blow the whole thing up. And that's what we saw in the first one. It's like you would think that the Empire, having seen what happened to the Death Star in the first episode, would protect against that particular weakness. So I thought that was a weakness in plotting. So then I felt like the stakes had to be raised. Even if you did essentially the same ending, you needed to raise the stakes a little bit in some way. And I think he did finally by putting the Emperor on the Death Star, so that the raised stakes were now if the Death Star explodes, the Emperor gets killed as well. But I was looking for sci-fi kinds of things to add to it. And so I came up with these ideas that I felt like, gee, this is something he could really do, but do I have it? How does someone like me have the gall at this point in the thing to write to him and say, yeah, you made some great movies, but here's how you could make it greater. So I felt kind of ridiculous, and I felt like, was I burning some bridges by even trying to do this?
Well, it worked for Spielberg, so far it's 100%.
Right. So, in the end, I doubt if he even read the letter, because he was probably so overwhelmed with everything he was doing in editing the movie at that point that, for someone to say, oh, there's a letter from the guy who was doing the novelization, I'm sure he said, well, great, tell me later. But, it was things like, well, what if it turns out that they learn that because of the way the Death Star has been reconstructed, if it explodes this time, it will start a chain reaction that will actually dissolve the entire galaxy. In the same way that before the first atomic bomb was set off, there was some fear among the people who designed that it could set off a chain reaction in the atmosphere and destroy the whole world.
Wow.
Those are some pretty high stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I thought that would be a great, and you wouldn't even, I mentioned in the letter that all you'd have to do is a single line describing that was the stake, even like on the back of someone's head, so it could just be a voiceover,
right,
of Mon Mothma saying that to someone, or Vader, or the Emperor saying it, or whatever. But it never went anywhere, so that's that.
Maybe at the age of 81 years old, Lucas looking like, what? I need a hobby. I'm gonna go clean out my office. And this is James Kahn. Like,
wow.
these are brilliant ideas.
Right. Yeah.
Why did you guys not give me these earlier? These are fantastic.
Why didn't I see this before?
Another idea you had, whenever the Death Star would destroy something, it would grow more and more powerful.
Yeah. That was another idea, that it drew its energy from the things it destroyed. So it was going to destroy the moon of Endor at some point, and then all that energy of the destroying moon would go into the weapon of the Death Star itself, so it would become even more powerful. So every star cruiser it destroyed would make it more powerful.
Wow.
So
That's something that like Marvel uses.
yeah.
Right.
So when you saw Return of the Jedi Special Edition, did you think, I wonder if there's a chance he opened up that letter and added some of my ideas in?
Nah, I let it go after that. You give it your shot and then you let it go.
There's the James Kahn chutzpah that everyone should take away from this, and
Yes.
nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's absolutely. If there's a lesson I want to transmit to everyone out there, it's that, we've all got this little guy in our head saying, "Oh, you can't do that. You're not smart enough. You're not creative enough. You're not important enough. Whatever it is, you better not. No reason to even try." But there's no reason not to try. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
He'll say no.
Right.
Okay. So it's momentarily embarrassing, and then you move on.
I think people's egos are too fragile in this day and age.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that you had wrote about in your book, which I'm deeply jealous, you went to the Lucasfilm 4th of July picnic in 1982.
Right.
I've always wanted to go to one of those Lucasfilm picnics, and we tried getting there so many times. So,
really,
can we live vicariously through you? Tell us some of the stories about what happened there.
Yeah, it was just a grand weekend-long event. I think I mentioned in the book, I can't remember, that he was mostly done with building Skywalker Ranch, but not completely. And he just had a camera set up in front of it for 2 years while it was being built, taking one frame every minute or whatever it was. And there was a continuous loop running in the front lobby of this massive building ranch being erected before your eyes over the course of 2 minutes. It was really fun to watch. And, everyone, it was basically one of the things I love about movies is the sort of working class ethic of tradespeople, each doing their own little, carpenters and painters and set dressers and lighting people and sound people. And it's a very hands-on craft kind of thing. And so they were all there. So there were, grudge football matches between carpentry and set design. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great seeing those pictures I've seen online of Harrison Ford talking to Robert De Niro or Meryl Streep speaking with Carrie Fisher, and there's Mark Hamill over there serving cake.
Yeah. It's like a big family. It's like a big, frat house almost.
Okay. Yeah. Was there like picnic games? Anything like that?
Yeah. All kinds of picnic games and picnic food and, burgers and coleslaw and buns and hot dogs.
Do you have any pictures in your collection that you can share?
No, I don't anymore. I think that's one of the things that got lost in that box, the lost box.
If only you had your iPhone with you then.
I know.
That'd be a ton of pictures on there at that point.
Everyone's lives are so different because of that.
Yeah.
Now, in your book, you say the ER was life on the dark side, and it made me a dark person. I was sensing I was less like Luke Skywalker than I was like Darth Vader, cut off from human feeling by violence and technology, open to salvation only as I was able and willing to be shed of those things. We would love for you to explain.
I think the thing that drew me both into writing fantasy and into emergency room work was a desire from a very young age to be a wizard. And, I used to read, when I was 8 and 9, read comic books, Amazing Stories and Strange Tales comic books. And they were all about, some were horror, but some were sci-fi and some were wizard kinds of things. And that just fascinated me. So that's what got me into writing those kinds of things, even from before I was a teenager. And then I went into medicine for a number of reasons, but one of them was exactly that, and particularly emergency medicine. That's the idea that someone could get brought in to the hospital dead, essentially, and I could bring them back to life, with my hands and my mind and my alchemical kinds of things, was just a feeling of real fulfillment and power and excitement. So when I first started in the ER, that's exactly what it was. It was, especially at LA County Hospital, where we saw 1,000 patients a day in the ER. It was the busiest hospital in the world. And the Army would send its battlefield surgeons to train there because it was the closest to battle conditions.
Wow.
Partly because of gang fights, partly because of traffic accidents. So it was a great learning experience in terms of all that kind of trauma and all the ways you can save people's life and limb. So at first it was very gratifying and rewarding, and then gradually as time went on, what I grew to realize was, in order to deal with all these things, with the pain and suffering I was witnessing, the pain I sometimes had to cause in order to help someone, uh, the horrible things people did to each other and to themselves, you erect barriers, you erect emotional guardrails to separate yourself from this, so you can work. Um, in a way that's not emotionally connected to what you're doing, because you want to be able to objectively view things and figure out what to do with them. So as that happens more and more, it gets harder and harder to bring those shields down in your real life. So, and even with my wife or my friends, I started getting more and more guarded and less able to share things, personal things. Um, I think there's the highest burnout rate among doctors in emergency room doctors, just because of that. So that was beginning to have an effect when I started getting all these writing gigs, and I found that the more I started writing then and getting in touch with my human aspect in order to write better, in order to give my characters human feelings and the kinds of humanity that I wanted them to exhibit and myself to exhibit, then the more human I felt about myself that I became. So it was a strange paradox, being a doctor who's supposed to care for people, being less human and more like Darth Vader, more dependent on electronic and mechanical and dehumanizing kinds of tools in order to do the things that I wanted to do, as opposed to the rest of my life, which was full of, music and poetry and friends and love.
But that's a great story.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it, even watching the show ER, which is very Hollywoodized. But then as you're explaining it now and reading it in your book, wow, you're right. You got to shut down everything to do your job because you can't get too emotional.
Have you seen The Pit?
No.
It's a show on, I think it's on HBO Max, and it's like ER meets 24. It's 15 consecutive hours in the Pittsburgh Trauma Center.
Whoa!
And it's the absolute most realistic show about an emergency room experience I've ever seen. In fact, it was like triggering sometimes. I would get flashbacks. It was so real. Everything I saw in the show was things that happened to me in the ER. And part of it dealt with just what we're talking about now, the way in which the ways that the doctors have to protect themselves and are not always able to protect themselves emotionally.
This also sounds like, I know Scrubs is a comedy, but they deal with those mortality and using humor to kind of, they use humor about death, which you have described in your book about just a way to deal with that.
That's one of the ways to deal with it.
Yeah, Scrubs has got a great balance of the heaviness with the comedy because there's already ER, so let's see the other side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And now, speaking of ER, we used this as a trivia question last week at Comic-Con Revolution. I read in your book that there was a sitcom with George Clooney called ER back in 1984. It's the first time I've ever heard of this. And we had used that as a trivia question, and people were like, there was never a sitcom ER. It's like, read my Jedi Memoir.
Right.
People were blown away.
It was a Norman Lear comedy, and shot on the Universal lot. Elliot Gould was the emergency room doctor, and Mary McDonnell was the night staff. So they would cross paths halfway through the show. And George Clooney, and I invented George Clooney's character. He was 20 years old then, I think, but playing a 16-year-old high school kid who was the orderly in the emergency room, Ace the orderly.
Oh wow!
And then 10 years later, he's now
that's
on
right.
another show, ER. And I've never really heard that many interviews with him, but the ones that I've never remembered him mentioning the before and after ER. But now that we're talking about Universal Studios,
Yes.
So you are now up there with King Kong, the Psycho House, and Jaws. You all share the same connection of you're part of the Universal Studios tram tour. Tell us about
Right.
that part.
Well, Universal was the home for, since back in the 50s for all these wonderful horror movies and Creature from the Black Lagoon kinds of things. Just sort of riffing off my memories here of being at Universal. Universal gave Spielberg Amblin Studios as a gift. It was kind of like putting a saucer of cream out for a cat to attract it, to keep the cat around all the time. So I remember that opening night party, the Amblin opening. It was out on the Universal lot, and it's this beautiful sort of Southwest Taos or Santa Fe style architecture buildings, cluster of buildings. And my first child had just been born, Laura. She was only like 2 months old. She'd been born prematurely, and she was tiny. So we brought her to the party. And I took her to Spielberg's table. It's a big, round table, and it was like, Hollywood royalty at this table. It was Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall, but Harrison Ford and Melissa Matheson, Barbara Streisand was there. I think Linda Ronstadt was there, and it was like the stunning moment. I presented my baby to Spielberg. It was like asking for the Pope's blessing.
Yeah, I've been to those studios in his Amblin Studios, which is behind a gate. The only office at Universal that's behind a gate.
Right.
And wow, it's like being in a whole different land.
It is, yeah.
So as the story goes, the tram was going by, and someone said, "And those are the writers right over there." And you're like, "Hey, we're now part of the Universal Studios tram
right.
tour."
I'm on the tour.
So yeah, you're up there with King Kong.
Right. Part of a recurring theme in my memoir is about how I feel like it's not exactly imposter syndrome, but that I worn masks over the course of my life in many situations. And this was the beginning of my writing career. I felt a little bit like I was sort of an imposter, like, who the hell did I think I was writing a writer for television shows? And it was this ER sitcom, which was run by Saul Turteltaub and Bernie Orenstein, who were two really old-time comedy writers from back in the 40s. They wrote for Sid Caesar and Milton Berle and George Burns. So it was their kind of comedy. But they really mentored me into how to write a television script. And as we were walking to the soundstage one day, the tram walked by and said, "Those are the writers." And I felt just like I am a writer.
That's me. Hey, that's me.
That's me. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, for the anniversary that just passed for the Universal Studios tram tour, they do mention out, and this is where we saw James Kahn that one day.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Famous day.
Yeah. Now your writing career did progress, and you were, as a big Star Trek fan, I was excited to learn that you became supervising producer for the last season of Star Trek Voyager. Now, in the book, you mentioned that kind of the less said, the better, because there's backstabbing or things going on, but I'd love to just hear about your role as a supervising producer. Like, what did that entail?
Sure. In television, as opposed to movies where the director is really the driving force, the driving creative force. In television, it's all about the writer. And the way all television shows, series are organized is when you're first starting out as a writer, you get hired as a staff writer, and you get assigned one freelance script. And you get to sit in on the story meetings and contribute as much as you want to. And you write one script and just sort of absorb the ambiance of what goes into making a show. So if they like you, they'll hire you back as what's called a story editor. And that's a little bit extra level in terms of responsibility and helping to make it. After story editor is executive story editor. And after that, you can become a co-producer. By the time you're a co-producer, you're still doing the same things you did as a staff writer. you're writing a script. Once, by the time you're a co-producer, you're writing usually 2 scripts a year. But now, as a co-producer, you're also getting involved in casting the scripts that you wrote, in conferring with the guy who does the score to figure out what the music should be like in the script that you wrote, talking to the director to talk over how he might direct the script that you wrote. And you take more responsibilities in the writer's room for developing future scripts. After co-producer, you become a producer, and then a supervising producer, and then a co-executive producer, and then finally the executive producer, who's the showrunner. But all those people making the television series are writers, every one of them. And even if they're called producer, that just means the executive producer is now in charge of overseeing all the scripts that get written. So the younger people on staff write their scripts. They get notes from the executive producer. They do a rewrite. Then that rewrite will go to one of the producers who will do a final polish on that script. And then the executive producer is in charge of sort of overseeing all the different stages that all the different scripts are going through. Some of them are being actually shot. Some of them are being prepped and talking to the directors. There are production meetings before it gets shot where the executive producer and 1 or 2 other producers on the show will sit around this big table with a member of the head of every department on the show, the hair, lighting, costumes, props, design, sound, and everyone has a script in front of them. And you go through the script page by page, and each head of the department has highlighted the few lines on that page that apply to their departments. And everyone chimes in with what they're going to do. And the executive producer says, well, I want the actor's hair to be like this in this scene, you know. And so that's how it all gets put together, but it's all by the writers. So when I was a co-executive producer on Melrose Place, which is one step above supervising producer.
Oh, okay.
My job as supervising producer in Star Trek was as I just described it, but I also had functions in running the writer's room when the executive producer was off doing some other responsibility, like going to the set or talking to the actors or the director. So running the writer's room means whoever's turn in rotation it is to write that week's script will have that kernel of an idea, and then we start batting it around, and I kind of guide all the writers in how the beats are going to go down. There's a big whiteboard, and someone's writing, okay, let's open with the doctor talking to Kate, and they'll talk about this, and the teaser should end this way, and let's end the first act this way, and if the first act ends this way, then the episode should end this way. So we start filling in beats all along the way, where the act ends are, and where the progression of the narrative is, and everyone's throwing in ideas, but the producer writer who's running the room sort of guides that discussion and shaping.
Back in my day, there was like maybe 1 or 2 producers listed on a TV show. Now there's like 55 producers, which is why the opening credits are always so long.
Yeah. A lot of the time now, those producers you see now don't have that much to do with the actual creation of the show. They're perks that actors get that gives them a bump in salary and prestige.
Right.
Diego Luna is listed as a producer now, and I'm sure he had creative input in the show. But I doubt if it was on the day-to-day in-the-room writing process.
Got it.
Yeah, you see him on the set with him and Tony Gilroy talking about different things.
Yeah.
But we don't want to drudge up anything, but you say that there's a lot of bad memories associated with this?
It was a highly politicized franchise.
Star Trek.
And Star Trek in general. And there seemed to be so much riding on it in terms of so much fan expectation, so much money put into it by the studio, that there was a lot of tension into what was going to happen in each show. And so the people in power, there were conflicts between them. There was sometimes blame between them. If one show didn't get good ratings, then there would be a lot of fallout from that. And so it just made for a less than pleasant working experience often.
Yeah.
Although the writers in the room were wonderful to work with.
Oh, that's good.
So that was a great part of it, and as to the extent that you could just sort of be doing that, it was fun.
That's the way I thought it was going to go, but I just wanted to hear it from you personally.
And I don't want to name names.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, this has been awesome to talk to you once again. So let's tell everyone that My Jedi Memoir, A Double Life, is now available on Amazon. Is it also sold in bookstores, or is that a thing of the past?
It's pretty much a thing of the past. It's sold in a couple independent bookstores here and there, but mostly it's Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And can I just ask anyone who reads it, please write me a review? Because that
Absolutely.
That's pretty much my whole marketing campaign on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we better do that too. Okay.
Oh, we definitely will.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for sharing these stories. As we're reading the book, it's like, oh, we got to ask James about this. Got to ask him about this. And this is so much fun here.
Oh yeah. We loved reading about your life and learning about you, James.
Well, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on, and may the Force and your memoirs be with you.
You too. All right. Thanks for having me.
That wraps up this episode 517 of
Skywalking Through Neverland.
We want to thank James Kahn for coming on the show. His book, My Jedi Memoir, A Double Life, is now on Amazon. And we want to thank all of the Skywalkers who listen every week. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on all socials at Skywalking Pod.
Now, do you have things that you want to share? Well, we do. So every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, we do a live YouTube show called Things We Want to Share, where we share things we've done in the past week. We just wrapped up things we want to share a few minutes before we started recording this show, and we shared our Disneyland 70th anniversary trip that we had made, and all of our adventures at Comic-Con Revolution.
And we did some trivia.
And some trivia, always trivia. We have some Skywalkers, love the trivia. And Julie and James came up and shared some of their fun experiences at Comic-Con Revolution. Courtney Turkel joined us and shared her magic key that she had got at the Disneyland 70th anniversary celebration and told us how it worked. Mm-hmm. Glenn Stein came up. So if you want to come up and share something that you did that last week or something that you added to your collection, please join us every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific for our live YouTube show.
Now, are you interested in our books, like Today in Star Wars History, Parts 1 and 2? Well, they are available now from skywalkingthrough-neverland.com/book, and they are autographed copies if you buy from that site.
Now, do you want to support Skywalking Through Neverland?
Of course.
Well, consider supporting us through the Skywalking Force, which is our Patreon. The Skywalking Force has access to bonus content in the form of our Zoom. Remember Zoom?
Yeah.
And our StreamYard discussions on past Disney Plus shows, starting with WandaVision, going up to Andor, which we've been doing off and on.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also get a coupon code to use on our Skywalking Press books. Today in Star Wars History, Parts 1 and 2, and Skywalking Through My Fandom.
Yeah. Now, this bonus content begins at only $5 a month, so you can head to skywalkingforce.com and have a look at some of those options. And we want to give a huge thank you to those of you who are already part of the Skywalking Force. I think we are 3 away from 50 members of the Skywalking Force. So if you want to be one of those 3 that pushes us to 50, that would be pretty awesome.
I'm going to pull up my Bostonian. That would be wicked awesome.
There you go.
Now, we want to thank our sponsor once again, Small World Vacation, for their continued support. Thinking of a trip to a Disney park, a Disney cruise, or to a Universal Studios theme park? Well, you can fill out a Get a Quote form at smallworldvacations.com today. Their vacation planning service is free of charge. So check it out and tell them Skywalking Through Neverland sent you.
All right, Skywalkers in the Sky Chat, get ready. We are part of the Skywalking Network.
Skynet.
Where you can find other great shows like Talking Apes,
The Neverland Clubhouse,
Star Warsologies,
The Max Effects Podcast,
Totally Tell Me Everything,
and the YouTube shows Collectopolis and Today in Star Wars History. Now, don't forget to stick around for bloopers and other fun bits that didn't make it into the show. And
always remember
to read a good book.
And
Neverland on Alderaan.
So it's time for your clappy claps. Yeah, every day is Star Wars.
Every day is Star
Reynold!
Wars. Yeah, do you know how you know that? From Today in Star Wars History.
That's right.
Now, one other thing that really caught my attention in your book is that you originally named the organist in Jabba's palace Red Ball Jet, which was eventually changed to Max Rebo by Lucasfilm. Where did that name Red Ball Jet come from?
Gosh, I can't recall. I don't know where that happened.
Because that isn't the name of a Tom Spina design that he came up with later on. This is the maquette he had made right here. We're going to show you this in a couple of seconds.
Give me a second. Here we go.
This is the maquette that Tom Spina had come up with, and he named this original Max Rebo Red Ball Jet.
Oh, maybe that's where I saw it. Maybe I got because I never saw any video from the film because they hadn't edited it yet. They were just starting to edit it, but they sent me 30 or 40 stills, production stills of creatures like this and of the characters, so I would know how to describe them in the film. Photographs of Jabba and Vader. So maybe I got a photograph like this and it said Red Bull Jet, and maybe that's where I got it. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, in an interview on StarWars.com, Tom Spina had said that it was Joe Johnston who came up with the name Red Ball Jet, but that would have preceded your novel.
Yeah.
So you could have gotten it from there. Okay, now all the dots are connected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Hey, look at those names to the left. They are part of the Skywalking Force, our Patreon.
Become a producer yourself and check out all the Disney Plus themed bonus content available depending on the level you subscribe.
Become a member of the elite Skywalking Force at skywalkingforce.com.